Join Dalton and Jacob as they discuss the ever-changing world of trading card games. TCG Buzz starts now.
Hello and welcome to TCG Buzz. My name is Jacob, and it's another audio-only episode, which you know what that means. It's collaboration time, and I've got a special guest today. Who are you?
So my online name is Xanitsu, and I have played multiple different card games, and I am even a card game designer.
And we're talking about Digimon.
Yes.
You've done quite a few Digimon videos on your channel, like a lot. You've been one of the major channels pushing the game recently.
I'd like to think I am. I hope I am.
Well, I just said you are, so, and since I said it, therefore it is now fact.
All right, it's a fact then.
So, and I have done one video on the new Digimon card game. So, this is video number 2. So what we're going to be doing today is we're all excited for the upcoming release of the English version of the Digimon TCG. If you know nothing about what we're talking about, I already did the first video, which, you know, is kind of more an introduction to what's going on. This one is, let's talk about some issues. I love being a negative Nancy. I don't know how you feel.
I don't like to consider myself negative. I like to consider myself a realist. Like, if it comes off negative, that's your perception of it. This is just the fact. This is what it is.
Yeah, so we're definitely not doing this like to flame people or anything like that. We're just we've noticed some issues with the game, not necessarily like game breaking oh no stuff. This is stuff that Bandai could be doing better. And we've also taken a look at comments from you guys from the Facebook page for the Digimon card game, from the Facebook group, from various comments people have given us, blah, 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 and kind of correlated a list of both the general community's complaints with the game and our complaints with the game. And we're going to talk about whether or not those are valid, and if they are valid, what can be done. So, first, I got to open with this. Issue number 1, and this is the biggest issue. This is the thing we can't move past. This is the elephant in the room. Reading.
Oh boy. Reading is very hard to do.
It is. So you got card text, right?
Yeah.
You've got card text. It explains what the card does, and the proxies we got for the game and the initial translations and whatnot were great. And what we've gotten from the official localization team has been a solid 5 out of 10, let's say.
Like, the frame really does help the cards, even with, like, not as good-looking cards. Like, they're still good-looking because the frame definitely helps it. But, yeah, like, they're all right.
They don't look as good as the Japanese versions, but they never will. English is naturally longer, and we're getting a lot of reminder text on the early cards, kind of to make it easier for people playing the game. So some of the cards do look quite long with their text, but they have done some things with their localization that have been, well, let's just say not helping the matter. First what do you call it when you take a card and for various reasons you turn it sideways, or you take it from being sideways and turn it back?
Well, if you're anything but Magic the Gathering, it's basically rest. If you play Magic the Gathering, then it's tap. But yes. Yeah, it's rest. You rest it.
I generally will use the Bushiroad terms for it, which are stand and rest. But you have the, Dragon Ball Super uses the rest mode and active mode. Magic uses tap and untap. What does this game use?
It uses suspend and unsuspend.
And there has been criticism of those terms, because I'd say the number one reason people are not the biggest fans of them is just because they're different. But number 2 would be because they're a little unwieldy, a little wordy, unnatural.
And they're not computer themed either.
No,
You
they're
know,
not. Like
not your
if you're gonna use a
computer.
custom term for it, make it a computer pun. Come on.
Right. They started doing that with a lot of the other cards. It's like, come on, computer pun it.
I think they should have stuck with Bandai's standard terms, which would have been rest and active. I
No,
think
I agree 100%. Also, rest and active are more fitting with computers as well.
yeah, I definitely think they dropped the ball there. And I don't know why they did that. What does the Japanese version do?
So the Japanese translated versions is rest and active.
Which, man, I don't know what the localization team is doing. This isn't the only weird thing they've done. We can talk about the big one.
Oh boy.
Why don't you introduce us to it?
Okay, so the big translation issue that a lot of people have been having is with the change from raising area to breeding area.
Let's try and discuss this topic without this video getting demonetized.
Yeah. So, like, I understand why the change is the way it is, but like the themes of Digimon, they don't do the physical act of the breeding. You raise your Digimon. That has generally been the overarching theme of, the whole concept is you raise them.
Yeah, there is I guess I would call it a flavor fail there, but like
Right.
that's not a big issue. Like I still understand what they mean by that.
Right. Like the intent was more focused around hatching, like the actual act of hatching an egg, which that is a part of breeding, yes, but like what the rest of that area means is definitely a flavor fail.
I don't mind the flavor fail. I understand it. What I mind is how absolutely goofy it sounds.
No, it's completely goofy.
You're asking players, a lot of the player fan base here are Digimon fans, but you're also going to be courting players of other card games. A lot of Dragon Ball Super players are going to, at least give the game a look and they're going to see, oh, there's a zone called the breeding area. I'm out.
Yeah, not even just like super players are looking at the game, but just like a whole bunch of other card game players are definitely looking to shift to a new game, and that definitely is a really
Yeah,
weird
especially
translation.
especially since a lot of card games have died this year.
Oh my God. And not even just dying, just them turning into a really bad state. Like the state of their game is just really bad.
I've played other card games in the past with either silly or somewhat that's what she said style terms in them. Buddy Fight had penetrate. In Vanguard, every turn you get to ride something. I could make a list. This is
Right.
the only one from the list that isn't okay. You're stretching here. Come on.
Yeah, the implementations of certain words could definitely have been avoided
I
for
don't
sure.
want to put a Renamon in my breeding area.
Oh God.
That's not something I'm looking to do. Some of you might
No,
be.
it's okay. She'll have an on play effect. Then you could avoid that completely.
All right. All right. Okay. That's probably a good uh, it is I don't like using the C word, but it is a little cringy.
No, it definitely can lead to some interesting conversations.
But it worries me more. Not I can live with it, but it worries me about the future of translations. If they've already made several really easy to avoid mistakes with it, what's it going to look like a year from now with translations?
Yeah, that's already true. Like even in our first booster set, we don't have this ability, but in the second one, we already have it translated and it's Digisorption. And like we just been calling it download for so long just because it just sounds better for what the ability is.
Is it
So it's like
digi
it definitely
absorption or digizorption?
it's Digisorption. Like
Oh,
it's
that's
supposed to be a
even
pun off of
worse.
Digi. Yeah, it's supposed to be a pun off of Digivolve and Absorption just slammed together, because that's how it was
Oh,
actually translated in Japanese.
I'm getting
Was you
Vietnam
absorbed and
flashbacks to
Digivolve.
the Digi rap.
Oh God. But yeah, like the English translation team, like the fan-based one, they just straight up said it's download. This is download, and I like that term better because it fits more thematically with computers, and it's still like it's just a keyword. Like, come on, it's just a keyword. It could literally be anything.
Come on, Bandai. I feel really, I don't know what the word for it is, but disappointed would be the best word I could have when, random fans are translating cards better than a massive media corporation.
I mean, to be fair, like the translation and everything, this all feels very, very quick. So I think it was literally just part of the rush job to get the game out in the English market.
But that's part of the problem here. These rush job decisions they're making are going to stay with us for the entirety of the game's life.
Yeah, that is very true.
They can't change the breeding area back. Once it's
No, but we
printed,
could
it's
always print,
printed.
but we could always print playmats with raising area, so it's fine.
Please do, guys. So we've got a bunch of other little, those are, I would consider those not very major complaints.
No, they're just like very like why'd you do it kind of decisions, but they don't ruin the game.
At best, they deserve a face palm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are some more, major things that could be improved. Here's one that I would place like right in the middle between, okay, you guys are seriously nitpicking, and okay, that's a valid point. And this is my thing. This is the initial complaint I had with the game that brought me to the table of having this discussion in the first place. Set theming.
Yeah. I would wholeheartedly agree. Set theming is it really could be better.
Would you say that the theming of sets for the Digimon card game feels more like picking names out of a hat or throwing darts at a dartboard?
Probably darts at a dartboard, because at least there's an idea going into where you're hitting.
Yeah, so there's a tiny bit of planning there, but not much.
Right.
There's a scale of how much your sets are themed. At the high end of the scale, you've got your normal sets for Magic the Gathering, where everything has a very distinct theme. Everything has to fit into a very strict identity for a set. On the other end, you've got games like Pokemon. Pokemon does not theme very much for their cards. You might have the occasional set that's themed, and even then it's kind of loose. But for the most part, sets have, here's 157 random Pokemon.
Yeah.
Digimon's on that side of the scale, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Like they should have honored, or they could have honored the legacy a little bit better by like theming the sets in line with the show, because that was a lot of people's first exposure was the VPETs and the show. And they could have literally used that type of a legacy to like actually theme their sets and build upon it as like we grew up with it.
And they don't even necessarily have to go in introduction order. I get they want to hit all the fan favorite Digimon. There are some people who are like, well, I'm not playing this unless Shine Greymon's in it, right? I'm here for the Terriermon stuff. 100% the Terriermon line is my jam, and that's what I was waiting for, and we're getting it. But like, it felt like a random inclusion. Everything feels like a random inclusion.
Yeah, like in the Japanese second booster set, there was no reason why Rust Tyrannomon needed to be in there. Like, why? Just why? Like, I don't get me wrong. I love my Rust Tyrannomons, and I love the card. It's just thematically, he didn't have anything to do with anything.
And the worst part for me is one of my favorite things to do with card games I love is speculation. And sets being as random, here's 25 different Digimon lines that we picked out of a hat. makes it really unfun to speculate. I'm saying, I want to be like, oh, well, we got this stuff in set 4, which means naturally they're probably in set 5 going to give us this and that. And I can't wait for, ooh, do you think they're going to give us a Royal Knights themed set? Or, ooh, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Instead, it's, hey, do you guys think they're going to add, what's a good Digimon line they haven't done yet? Throw me an answer.
Renamon.
Oh, yeah. That's the big one. Do you think they're going to throw in Renamon? Yeah, roll a d6, and if it rolls a 6, it's in the next set.
Yeah. No, it definitely feels that way, because they could have, like, paired Vmon, like, literally had a Vmon-based set, or, like, a portion of the set be Vmon-based, and literally all of the blue cards could have been the Vmon cards. Like, that could have been just what they had done. Instead, they literally said, all right, here's All Force Vmon and this set, and then later here's another one.
We do get some theming around gameplay. They're like, okay, well, we're going to introduce several Frontier-style hybrid cards at the same time, but that's something you're going to get no matter what with a card game. I feel like there's been no effort put, and this is a complaint with the Japanese side of the game. This is one of the few complaints that is not the English game's fault. We should state that. It really does feel random.
No, it's completely random. Like, I would like something easier. It's not even just easier to follow. It's just like it gets me more excited when I kind of already know. Like, I'm a person who loves spoilers, so it gets me more excited to be able to accurately predict what's going to be when. And seeing how everything is just random just is like, oh, cool, my favorite Digimon is not in the set. Is he going to be in the next one? Is he going to be in the next one? I don't know.
No one knows.
Right.
So we've talked about my biggest personal complaint, and I'd love to hear what everyone's thoughts on that are. Is it a big deal that there's no real set theming? Is it not? Blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about the thing most people care about with the game, and that's gameplay.
Yeah. Part of the game is gameplay.
I'll let you start us off. What do you think about the gameplay?
I love the gameplay. Like, from its core, it has a very solid foundation. It is basically just, I hate to use this term, but it's basically just Chrono Clash, but better. Because not a lot of people played Chrono Clash.
I had a comment from someone who got mad at me because I, facetiously said, yeah, Digimon stole all of Chrono Clash's ideas, and they thought I was serious, like, as a criticism of Digimon, and they got really triggered. I'm like, no, that's a good thing.
Chrono Clash was a very well-crafted game that just had awful execution on literally everything it was doing.
Absolutely everything. I've well documented it. But the core gameplay of Chrono Clash was really unique, and it was good. It had some really, really big flaws, though. But somehow Digimon fixed almost all of them.
Oh, just wait. They're going to introduce level 8s in alternate forms as EX cards. That's what I'm going to be dreading.
I want my big cards.
No, please.
I want my jumbo cards. I need custom big sleeves for them.
Oh, God. But, yeah, the gameplay is just rock solid. It's doing a lot of, like, very traditional and familiar things that a lot of other card games do, so it's very easy to pick up and learn. But to really master it, it's actually a lot more harder than people give it credit for.
In that regard, it reminds me a lot of Dragon Ball Super, because both games have a very important strategy of deciding when it is best to attack that is very hard for beginners to master, but is very satisfying once you do.
Right. Digimon kind of alleviates a little bit of that issue because of how, like, turn structure and the whole resource system of the game works, where it's just like, oh, I played my Digimon, I ran out of resources, it's my opponent's turn. You don't even get to attack half the time just because of the act of playing cards ends your turn. So it makes it really interesting on when you choose and how you choose to attack.
I think if I had to rate the gameplay overall, having primarily only played with set 1 and set 2 stuff myself so far, I'd give it like a B+.
I think that's pretty fair of an assessment. Like, there's still some issues with its gameplay, and not all of the issues were fixed from Chrono Clash. So it still has a little bit of that, but it's nothing it can't like outgrow or change.
Well, let's talk about those issues that are holdovers. First of all, it's way too easy to build a deck filled with tiny, tiny chumps.
Oh my God. Yeah, like Rookie Rush will always be a deck unless there's multiple cards that just hard counter it. One card to hard counter Rookie Rush is not enough.
And Chrono Clash had the same issue. So I
Oh
really
yeah.
think they could have avoided that. They didn't, though. Strictly just looking at the time system, or I guess memory system, I have to get used to calling it that now. It is inherently designed so it is better to play smaller things
Yes.
because you want to give your opponent the least amount of memory as possible. So the cards that give you the most flexibility in that are smaller things.
Especially when those small things just auto hit and break the opponent's health.
Yeah, sure. There's a, let's say 50% chance your thing dies from the attack, but you're going to be okay with that because you only lost a sucky little rookie card and you got 10 more of them.
Right. And you just play them for cheap and you build a good board really quickly.
So I think outside of hard counters to the deck, I think the best way to alleviate this issue, which as of now is an issue, is to make security cards better, which from spoilers we've seen recently, I think is one of the goals of the game right now.
Yeah, with the Digimon in set 3, at least on the Japanese side, they introduced security Digimon, which when they expand upon that, it's going to change the game dramatically. And I'm waiting and hoping they do that, not necessarily as quickly as I want, because, they got to ramp it up to make the game more comfortable with its current changes. But, like, I'm just waiting for security Digimon just to get better.
So another thing, which I wouldn't necessarily call this an issue, more of a trade-off, is one major change from Chrono Clash. In Chrono Clash, when your security card, I am totally blanking on what Chrono Clash calls them. When a card in your security is destroyed, it goes to your hand, much like its predecessors. Going all the way back to Duel Masters. When
Yep.
your shield's broken, it goes to your hand.
Yep.
Digimon doesn't do that.
It goes straight to the trash.
It goes right into the garbage unless it has an effect that allows you to immediately play it.
Right.
Now, that sounds like a bad thing, but they, instead of not allowing you to draw cards, they changed where those draws come from. Instead, you get to draw when you digivolve.
Yes, I think the app called it literally an evolution bonus.
Yeah. And for the most part, that makes sense to me, and it seems fine, but it has one major issue. Major-ish, I don't know, I guess. And that's the lack of comeback ability. If you're really losing, you've lost. There is no way for
Yes,
you to come back in the game. When
or
I
at
was
least it's very hard.
Yeah, because you need to digivolve in order to draw extra cards. And what if you happen to have a hand where you can't do that? Whereas if you had a system where you're drawing from your security when you're taking damage, which self-balances, I think that would be easier. I'm not saying they should change that, but it is something to keep in mind for future design. It is harder to come back in this game than basically any other I've ever played.
Yes. So, like, right now in the booster set 3 meta, and I've been trying my darndest to make a video covering this topic, but game is in such a state where once you control the board, you just win the game. There's not a whole lot the opponent can really do to stop you, and that's why certain cards like Omnimon are not only performing very well because he's just a big body, but he's overperforming because he has one of the best removal effects in the entire game.
Yeah, even looking at the simplest, most casual games, I played a decent chunk of games in the tutorial app. Which, by the way, if you haven't played the tutorial app, you should probably give it a shot. It's quite well made, just like the Dragon Ball Super one was.
Yep.
And I had games where just looking at the opening turn, I knew if I had won or lost it.
That's not so much as true in like the full game. Obviously, with the app being a bite size, it's a little bit more obvious.
Hmm.
But like in a normal game, there does become a point where both players have to acknowledge the state that the board is in and realize the game is over.
And that feels bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make the game satisfying for either side.
No,
So,
it doesn't.
that is if I had to make one complaint about the gameplay, that would be my complaint. Even though, again, I still think the gameplay is great.
No, like when everything is like going as no, like a normal game would flow, the flow is very, very good.
I wish they had taken those marginal games, the off games, more into account where things aren't going perfectly. Because when the game does go perfectly and both players are, tearing into each other and it's really close, it's amazing. But in those very one sided games, the game sucks.
Yeah, and part of it is due to just how the Digimons are designed. Some of them, they're not necessarily over designed. It's just the levels of removal allow it to overperform better than others, and that's why certain decks have been climbing to the top, is just because they can effectively deal with the opponent better than the opponent can deal with you.
I don't think this is a game breaking thing, but I think it is something that, will have to be slowly patched over time. And
I mean,
I,
they already started to try to do it, but I'm very cautious on how they're going to go forward with it with one of the new Digimon from set 3.
one of the biggest worries players have for the game is power creep. Are you worried?
Actually, no. Like looking back at how the sets like between sets 1 and 3 were designed, Omnimon came out in set 1 and he's still topping even in set 3. Even if you took out the best card from set 3 that Omnimon got, Omnimon would still be a topping deck just because of how well the game has been balanced, like how well it's balancing itself.
I'm not that worried about power creep. I think, and in fact, I think power creep is a healthy thing in moderation. I
Right.
am concerned how it's going to look, a year or two or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, because the game's already pretty consistent. It's already the power level is relatively high, which is the same that Dragon Ball Super's game was at when it launched, and it relatively quickly became a broken mess.
I won't disagree with it. Vanilla Goku literally broke me in half.
But I think first of all, the Dragon Ball Super card game's designed by the English Bandai team, whereas this is designed by JP Bandai, and that is a significant difference.
Oh yeah, Japanese game design is completely different than American's game design, but I feel like the Japanese team has had enough knowledge and mistakes over, God, what is it, 20 years? Feels like 20 years. But they've had enough mistakes to learn um, from it and really start to craft a really well-made game.
So I'm not that concerned about power creep. Like if I had to, put on a scale 1 to 10 how concerned I am, I'd give it like a 4. How about you?
I'd give it a 3.
All right. What else would you like to talk about?
So one of the big things that I noticed with the Digimon game is like it's more of the community thing where it's like Digimon is trying its hardest to come out. Obviously, we know it kind of feels very, very rushed, but like the community isn't necessarily making it better. And like I feel like Bandai is looking at what the other audiences are doing and trying to fix a lot of the mistakes based on their perception. So like we get a lot of reminder text where we don't need to in certain areas because they want to make sure that we understand the ability because we've been asking the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. Like this dates back even to when the game first started with on play versus on Digivolve. Like it's mind baffling on how people don't even read the rules yet want to try to play the game.
Yeah, and you know what? I do think the tutorial app helps a little, though I wish it had a couple extra scenarios to explain some of those. You know, explain the difference between on play and on Digivolve. Exactly, a great example.
Right. And like a lot, this kind of goes back into the wording where it's just like a lot of players were really frustrated with the trigger word being in between a condition and the effect. And it's just like, well, why is that word there? It doesn't need to be. Well, that word is in there to try to stupid proof the game because people don't understand how abilities work. You play the card to trigger the effect. You do this condition to get the effect. The word trigger is just a linker. And that's also not only just stupid proofing, but future proofing a lot of their potential wordings and designs.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the same criticisms. Again, not trying to keep drawing back to Dragon Ball Super, but Dragon Ball Super had some strange wordings in its initial days that people heavily complained about. I saw posts all the time about awkward wording and whatnot. And then by like the third set, it was made perfectly clear why they had done it because those specific wordings mattered by that point.
Right.
Hey, you want another a complaint? And I'm not sure if this is a nitpick or something serious. I honestly don't know, so maybe you can help me evaluate it.
Okay.
Why do trial decks or starter decks or whatever they call them in this game? I can never keep track with terminology. Why don't they have playmats in them?
Wait, they don't have playmats in them?
They
This
don't
is
have
news to me.
Yeah, they don't have playmats in them. You get, in most card games, you get like a folded paper playmat in your thing. Nope, there's no playmats in the. I mean, they do have time yet that they could change it, but as far as I've heard from talks with distributors, there are no paper playmats included, so they are encouraging local game stores to print them off.
That's kind of an like I get where do I even begin on this one? The biggest thing is it feels like it's a cost thing. Like they just don't want to bother doing all of the design work that goes into not only just printing the playmat, but making that foldable and putting it in the starter deck. Like they just don't want to bother with that. They'd rather just print the cards, stick it in the box, and call it a day.
Maybe it's also a time thing. Maybe it would have taken them too long to get those. Still
Right.
dumb.
That is a very weird thing, but yeah, that's weird.
It it's not even that big of a convenience. When was the last time you used one of those stupid paper playmats? But it's
Uh,
weird.
the last time I used it was 15 years ago with Yu-Gi-Oh. That was the last time I've ever used a learn to play playmat.
The last time I used one was with Luck and Logic because that game was when it came to
A hot
learning
mess.
the game, it was quite the struggle.
Yeah.
I have one major, huge issue to discuss. But before we get into that one, do you have anything else?
I guess like this kind of is a gripe of mine more from just watching other YouTubers. But the speed of the game, like they make the game seem so much longer than it needs to be, and decisions are just like they're not something you need to sit 15 like minutes on. Like there's no reason why a game can't be done in 10 minutes. It's like when Rookie Rush came out for the first time, it was like, "Oh, the game was over in 5 minutes." It's like, "Well, why was that?" Because the decision making was cut way down and it was just a more streamlined experience, and I feel like if a lot of people just took the time to actually learn a little bit more about their deck before going into a video, then they could literally cut their videos time down to fit a more digestible size. And
It
the
is
same thing could even be said in tournament play too.
it's a
Like the speed
very
of the game is
fast-paced
fine.
game.
Yes, and that's like part of Japanese game design is they like quick and snappy. And the fact that like we're trying to overanalyze and overthink everything is like really like your turn ends the second you play a card half the time. Like there's not that much decision making that really needs to be like sit on for a whole minute.
The physical IRL competitive tournament scene's not gonna, let's just say, not gonna be around for a little while. Uh, given current events, but
Yeah.
I will be interested to see when we get to that point, how long games are going to take. Are we going to have games go to time? I don't know.
I hope not. God, I hope not.
Dragon Ball Super was a game that most of the time took quite not very long, but occasionally you got the game state where it's like this game will take an hour and a half to resolve. I don't see that being a thing here.
No, so like I was playing a couple of games last night with one of my friends, and the longest game we had took like 25 minutes, and we used up all of our breeding area, or sorry, raising area. And
Don't make me cringe.
I'm sorry, but we used up all of the Digitama in our raising area, and I was just like, I've never had this happen. Like, it was actually mind baffling, but that's just because the decks were so like tit for tat, well tuned against each other that it was still a very enjoyable gameplay. And 25 minutes for one game versus like literally the next game I clapped them in less than 10. It's just like that's still a very digestible time frame for tournament and competitive play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they nailed the overall pacing of the game. It feels fast and it is fast without being overwhelming. It's still quite simple with the amount of, things you have to consider each turn.
Right.
While still being quite dynamic. I think they did quite a good job at the overall pacing. So that's not something I'm too worried about. Anything else you got before we get into my big ranty complaint?
No, let's hear this.
Oh boy. All right. Digimon as a card game is awesome for the players and the fans. You know who it's not awesome for?
Who?
The local game stores who have to sell it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
No. Which is Bandai traditionally has a great relationship with LGS stores. Speaking from my experience, knowing half a dozen LGS owners and having talked to them about their relationships with Bandai, they all generally have positive views of Bandai as a company to work with through their distributors or directly.
Okay.
However, everyone I've talked to has been incredibly stressed out or exhausted by the process this card game in particular has put them through.
Probably because it's a rush job.
It is a rush job, and that doesn't hurt us as players that much. Even though I'm like, oh my god, stop putting out products. I don't have money. I just dropped money on my case of the first set. I don't have the money to buy your stupid deck box playmat and promo cards. But for LGS owners, it's been a nightmare because the game's been so fly by night. They had to have their pre-orders in. Many of them had to have their pre-orders in for the pre-release, hey, we're releasing the game early for special stores and for special people. Some of them back in October. That's not enough time to know if you need to carry the game.
Let alone how much of it you need.
Have you experienced any issues with your local game stores having issues with knowing what they're getting?
I've been in big communications with my main one and some minor communications with the other ones. The other ones won't open up to me as much as like my, home one. But my home one, they were in contact. They initially got they said, hey, we got some product. And then Bandai asked, do you want more? And they said, yeah. And then they're just like, oh, wait, no, JK, we're actually giving you less after you just upped your order. And so now they're just kind of sitting confused on how much they're actually going to end up with. So when I was hounding them for not only prices but quantities, just so I know how much I should be getting and how much I should leave for other people, or how much is going to be left between November through the release, they couldn't give me an honest answer because they didn't have one themselves.
That's exactly what I've heard. That is textbook exactly what local game stores are going through. There's so much uncertainty. And in 2020, local game stores do not need more uncertainty.
No. I get the whole idea was to really help them and give them a big boost by doing this and releasing it. But they could have tightened up their communication. They could have gave them a little more leeway on ordering stuff. Orders had to be done even for the January release for both booster boxes, mind you, 1.0 and 1.5. Those had to be done mid-October. And I'm just oh shoot, I nearly forgot and missed my chance to buy some. I lost track of time, and it was just so early to end the pre-order.
I'm someone who loves this game and has been interested in it since day one of the Japanese release, and I find it hard to keep up with it. Imagine how it is for a local game store who knows they've got a couple players really interested in it, but have not followed it, don't know anything about it. They just know they've got a few players in their local scene who say, hey, can you get that Digimon stuff in for us? Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bandai really, really needs to fix their communication with distributors and with local game stores. If there was one thing that could screw this game over and ruin its launch, it's that.
Yeah, especially for the January launch with all of the like officials product, because like the game launches in January next year. That's literally the start of the brand new year. And then literally 1 month later is 1.5. That's a lot of money to be shelling out very, very quickly, and we have zero idea what's going to be coming after 1.5, considering Japan is going to be on set 5 when we get our 1.5.
We don't even know what the ratios are going to look like in those boxes.
No, and the ratios are probably the most important thing because that'll dictate the entire secondary and thus tertiary markets and kind of like dictate how much cards are actually going to be going for.
You know, if it's hard for me as a player to judge how much of each product I need to buy and when. Imagine being a local game store owner with 30 me's going, well, yeah, I know I want some, but I don't know how much, and I don't know when I'm going to pay you for it, and I don't know this or that or that or that. I need to wait and see. And they're sitting there with their deadlines up 2 weeks ago.
Right. Like, it becomes very, very hard to figure out exactly everything you need to get started and to get going.
I guarantee if you out there ask your local game store their honest opinion on the Digimon card game right now, that's what they're going to talk about. They're not going to say, oh, the art's really pretty, or, oh, yeah, I think it's going to do well as a competitive scene. They're going to say, Bandai's making us so stressed.
Right. Because it's part of their job to appease us because that's how they get money. And if Bandai is their big, like, the big thing that's going to be making us happy, which makes them happy, like, it's making them stressed because they can't make us happy. And then they could potentially lose a customer or, like, lose a returning customer.
Yeah, and they don't need it this year. Plus,
No.
Bandai has a mixed track record with local game stores. You know, Dragon Ball Super proved to be quite the big success for them. But Chrono Clash didn't.
No.
So they already have
to the Japanese side.
They already have to weigh that in, you know, and say,
yeah.
hey, is this game going to be successful or not? And with so much uncertainty, it gets really hard for them to justify even jumping into the game in the first place.
Right, because most game stores don't actually research like how to actually play the game or do anything like with the Japanese markets. Like they don't do a lot of that research until like cards start coming out and players teaching them how to play the game. Like they're going to be learning along with you. And so like gameplay aside, they have almost no knowledge on it other than it's a game and it exists.
Right. They're busy people. They've got a lot on their minds, especially right now. So
yeah, and especially with a lot of other games coming up.
I would say a big thing is if you can make things easier for your local game store by having blunt, easy to understand communications with them and, you know, set out your expectations saying, hey, this is what I want from this set. This is what I want from that set. Please do. Don't assume your LGS knows what's going on.
No, never assume.
Yeah. Well, I think that's everything on the list. Is there anything else you'd like to hit, or would you like to go into that lovely, lovely outro time?
We could go into outro.
All right. Why don't you start by telling people why they should subscribe to your channel?
So, not only should you subscribe to my channel, I offer a variety and a plethora of content on the regular. My goal is to try to upload every day, or if I can't every day, at worst, every 2 to 3 days. So I always have something new and exciting to talk about. Not only do I cover just general decks, I cover gameplay, I cover design philosophies, I cover just a whole bunch of different content that all pertain to the game we all are wanting to love.
Yeah, TCG Buzz fans who are like, hey, you guys only have one video on the game out. We want some more. Here's an alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. And for you guys out there, I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts either in the comments down below about the mini issues. Are they all nitpicks? Are we biased against the game because we secretly hate it? The usual YouTube stuff. Or you can talk to us on the TCG Buzz Discord as well, of course. And if you'd like to buy some Digimon cards, you can buy them on TCG Player if you'd like and use our affiliate code. And I think that's it. So I'll say goodbye, and then you can say goodbye. See ya.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to TCG Buzz. New episodes can be found on tcgbuzz.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For box openings, deck profiles, and more, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.